5:12 local time, Northern Arabian Sea. Inside the operations center of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, everything looks routine. The radar screens sweep in calm green arcs. Merchant ships appear as small dots across the horizon. Patrol routes are normal. The sea picture is quiet. Then one console lights up. New contact, a radar operator leans closer. Range 92 nautical miles. Bearing 041, altitude low. A second contact appears beside it, then a third. 3 aircraft, tight formation, moving fast. The watch supervisor marks them immediately on the main tactical display across the CIC wall. 3 unknown air contacts are now moving directly toward the carrier group. Their speed indicators begin rising. 400 knots, then 450, then 500. Someone checks the transponder codes. Nothing, no identification, no flight plan, no radio call, just silence. The tactical action officer keeps his voice steady. Track them. The ship's radar network widens its sweep and locks onto the approaching formation. The aircraft drop lower, now just under 3,000 feet, low enough to blend into the clutter above the sea. That is not normal. Inside the CIC, the tension is controlled, but everyone feels it. This is exactly the kind of pattern every watch team is trained to recognize. 3 aircraft, close together, no transponders, high speed, closing on a U.S. carrier group. The operations officer studies the radar profiles. Run identification. Electronic sensors begin comparing heat patterns, radar returns, and aircraft shapes against known databases. Within seconds, the first result appears. MiG-29 Fulcrum. The radar operator looks up. Iranian, but the other 2 contacts do not match the same type. Another analyst zooms in on the thermal signature. Different engine pattern, longer fuselage, variable sweep wing profile, second aircraft, possible F-14 Tomcat. For a moment, the room goes even quieter. Iran is the only country in the world still operating them. Then the third identification comes in. Large radar return, twin-engine strike platform, Su-24. 3 different aircraft, 3 different mission roles, flying together in one formation. The tactical officer gives a slow nod. That's not a routine patrol. Outside on the carrier's flight deck, sailors move between parked aircraft, preparing for the morning air cycle. The ocean is calm. The sky is pale blue, with thin clouds drifting over the horizon. None of them can see the jets yet. But inside the ship, the picture has already changed. Distance, 80 nautical miles. The Iranian aircraft descend again. Altitude, 2,000 feet. Speed, Mach 0.9. To naval aviators, that profile is familiar. Low altitude, high speed, reduced radar visibility, a classic maritime approach profile. The communications officer keys the emergency frequency. Unidentified aircraft approaching United States naval forces in international waters. You are entering a monitored zone. Maintain safe distance immediately. The message goes out across multiple radio bands, military, civilian, and international guard frequencies. No response. The 3 aircraft keep coming. Inside the CIC, the escorting ships begin changing posture. Their Aegis radars widen their search sectors. Data moves instantly across the fleet network. Every ship now sees the same 3 contacts. An escort cruiser begins calculating intercept options. A destroyer brings its tracking systems to full readiness, not escalating, just prepared. Back inside the carrier, a second radio call is transmitted. Unidentified aircraft, alter course immediately. Again, silence. Distance, 65 nautical miles. That number matters. At that range, several long-range airborne systems can already become a threat. The tactical officer watches the closing timer tick down. No course change from the Iranian formation. No climb, no communication, only speed. Then the electronic warfare station speaks. New radar emission detected. Everyone in the CIC turns toward the console. The signal is narrow and focused. Not a wide area search radar, a targeting mode. One of the Iranian aircraft has changed its radar behavior. In aviation terms, that means the situation has moved into a much more serious phase. The radar operator confirms it. Contact Bravo, Iranian F-14 radar active. On the tactical display, the symbol beside the Iranian aircraft changes color. The carrier group has just been illuminated by a targeting radar, and the 3 jets are still closing. 5:16 local time. Distance, 52 nautical miles. Inside the carrier's combat information center, the 3 aircraft symbols continue sliding across the tactical display. Their speed remains just below Mach 1. Their altitude drops again, now barely 1,200 feet above the water. Sea skimming, a flight profile designed to stay hidden inside radar clutter for as long as possible. The tactical officer does not raise his voice. Confirm radar emissions. The electronic warfare operator checks the signal again. Confirmed. Targeting radar active. The signal is coming from the Iranian F-14 Tomcat, flying slightly behind the lead aircraft. On the screen, the formation becomes clearer. The MiG-29 is leading the approach. Fast, agile, and designed for air-to-air combat. Behind it, the Tomcat holds a slightly higher position. Its radar beam reaches forward in a narrow cone, scanning, tracking, and maintaining focus on the carrier strike group. At the rear of the formation, the Su-24 moves heavier and lower, staying close to the surface of the sea. 3 aircraft, 3 separate roles: escort, tracking platform, strike aircraft. The tactical officer studies the formation geometry. They're shaping an approach corridor. Outside, the Arabian Sea remains calm. The carrier cuts through deep blue water at 20 knots. Its escort ships hold their defensive positions several miles away. But inside the strike group's shared network, every radar is now focused on the same 3 aircraft. Aegis systems aboard the destroyers track them without interruption. Altitude, speed, heading. Every detail is recorded. On the carrier's bridge, the air defense commander listens as the report comes up from CIC. 3 Iranian aircraft approaching in coordinated formation. Distance, 50 nautical miles, and closing. A brief pause follows. Then the order comes. Launch the intercept. Down on the flight deck, 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets on alert status suddenly come to life. Their engines rise with a deep roar. Deck crews move instantly. Yellow shirts signal across the deck. Red shirts clear the wheels. Steam rolls from the catapult track. Inside the cockpits, the pilots complete their final checks in seconds. They already know what is happening. The warning has gone out across the ship's internal network. Unknown aircraft approaching at high speed. Possible unsafe intent. The catapult officer drops his hand. The first Hornet is thrown into the morning sky in a burst of steam and engine heat. Seconds later, the second follows. Both jets turn immediately toward the incoming formation, but they still need altitude, distance, and time. Back inside CIC, the radar picture grows tighter. Distance, 48 nautical miles. The Iranian formation remains steady. No hesitation, no course change. Then the electronic warfare console lights up again. New signal spike. The operator studies the emission pattern. The Tomcat's radar beam has sharpened. Power output is rising. That is no longer simple tracking. That is preparation for a possible engagement. Another officer checks the MiG-29. The fulcrum begins shifting slightly left. On the display, the lead aircraft opens space, creating a cleaner path through the formation. Behind it, the Su-24 drops even lower. Altitude, 800 feet above the ocean. The strike aircraft is lining up. The tactical officer speaks quietly. That bomber is setting up its run. The Su-24 was never built for close-range aerial duels. It was built for heavy strike missions, including maritime operations. It can carry large anti-ship systems capable of putting major warships out of action from long distance. Inside the CIC, the air defense clock keeps counting down. Time to intercept, 5 minutes. Time to possible engagement range, less than 2. On another console, one of the escort destroyers brings its fire control radar online. The Aegis system begins calculating defensive solutions automatically. Standard missile batteries shift to ready status. Ready, but not released. The rules remain clear. No action unless the danger becomes undeniable. Then the electronic warfare station calls out again, louder this time. Radar spike confirmed. Every eye turns toward the console. The Tomcat's radar has changed modes again. This time, the signal is focused on one target, the aircraft carrier. Across several CIC screens, warning indicators flash at once. Target lock detected. The Iranian F-14 now appears to have a firing solution. Distance, 42 nautical miles. For a long-range air launch system, that is more than enough. One officer lets out a slow breath. They're committing. Outside the carrier, nothing appears different. The ocean still looks peaceful. The morning sky is still clear. But roughly 40 nautical miles away, 3 Iranian jets are now moving straight toward the most powerful naval force in the region. And one of them has just brought its launch system into play. Seconds later, the radar operator confirms it. The Iranian jet's targeting radar stabilizes. Lock sustained. The weapons officer watches the display, then says the words everyone in the room understands. Launch parameters achievable. The Tomcat holds the lock. 3 seconds. 4, 5. Then a sudden flash appears on the radar scope. The Iranian aircraft has released something. 5:17 local time. Inside the Combat Information Center, the radar operator sees it first. A new contact appears on the tactical screen. Small, fast, accelerating. The symbol flashes red. Launch detected. For half a second, the room goes completely still. Then the tactical officer speaks in a controlled voice. Confirm track. Another console locks onto the new object almost instantly. Its speed climbs past Mach 2. Altitude remains low. Heading directly toward the carrier strike group. Confirmed. 1 inbound. On the large digital map covering the CIC wall, a bright track line stretches from the Iranian F-14 toward the American formation. Estimated time to intercept, 90 seconds. That is the new timeline. 90 seconds between launch and impact. The Air Defense Commander does not hesitate. Activate defensive systems. Across the carrier strike group, the response begins at once. On board an escorting Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the Aegis combat system shifts from monitoring to active defense. The ship's spy radar tightens its beam and locks onto the incoming object. Every movement is now tracked hundreds of times per second. Speed, heading, flight profile. A defensive solution is calculated automatically, but the destroyer's captain waits. Because another layer of protection is already moving first. Inside the carrier's electronic warfare station, a new alarm sounds. Operators bring the EW systems online, sending powerful electronic signals into the air. Invisible waves spread between the fleet and the incoming threat, filling the space with interference, false returns, and shifting signals. The goal is not to stop it physically. Not yet. The goal is to confuse it. 40 nautical miles away, the inbound object continues racing toward the strike group. But it is not moving on its own instincts. It depends on radar guidance. The Iranian F-14 is still trying to hold the track, feeding information forward as the object closes in. At least that is how the system is supposed to work. Inside the Tomcat's cockpit, the pilot watches the guidance display closely. The track should be clean and stable. Then the data begins to flicker. The radar return weakens. Then it shifts. The pilot narrows his eyes. Something is interfering with the signal. Back inside the American carrier strike group, the electronic warfare systems intensify. Multiple ships now transmit in coordination, creating a wall of electromagnetic noise across the sky. The incoming system begins receiving conflicting information. Instead of one clear return, its seeker now sees dozens. False echoes, ghost ships, moving reflections. The guidance computer tries to correct itself, but every adjustment leads to another distortion. Inside the CIC, the radar operator watches the track begin to wobble. Inbound is losing stability. The tactical officer leans forward. Distance? 30 nautical miles. At this range, it should still be driving straight toward the carrier. Instead, its path begins drifting. Slightly at first, then more clearly. Electronic warfare is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Break the lock. High above the ocean, the two F/A-18 Super Hornets, launched from the carrier, continue climbing hard toward the threat axis. Their radars sweep forward. The pilots already know what has happened. Launch detected. They push their engines harder and keep closing the distance. Inside the CIC, the inbound object continues to struggle. Its guidance signal flickers again. The radar operator points to the screen. It's searching. That means it has lost its primary lock. Now its onboard seeker is scanning for anything that matches its profile. But the air ahead is filled with electronic interference. The object banks slightly left, then right, trying to reacquire. Every time its radar scans forward, the signal breaks apart into noise. 20 nautical miles. Still no stable lock. Inside the Iranian F-14, the pilot tries to maintain guidance, but the American EW systems are overwhelming the signal. The radar picture fragments. The connection weakens. The inbound object is now effectively blind. Back inside the carrier's CIC, the tactical officer keeps his eyes on the track. Status? The radar operator shakes his head. No stable acquisition. 10 seconds later, the object begins drifting completely off course. Its seeker searches empty ocean. The carrier strike group remains hidden behind a cloud of electronic noise. It continues forward, but no longer toward its intended point. Finally, at extreme range, the track begins to drop. The flight path arcs downward. The radar return fades, then disappears. Impact into open water. Inside the CIC, no one cheers. No one celebrates. The room stays disciplined and quiet. Just a calm confirmation. Splash. One threat neutralized. But 40 nautical miles away, the Iranian formation is still moving toward them. And now, American fighters are closing in. 5:19 local time. The inbound track is gone. It vanished from the screen seconds ago, ending harmlessly in the open sea. But inside the Combat Information Center, no one relaxes. The 3 Iranian aircraft are still coming. Distance 34 nautical miles. Speed Mach 0.92. Formation intact. The MiG-29 continues leading the approach, cutting low across the ocean. Behind it, the F-14 Tomcat keeps its radar pointed forward, though its lock has been weakened by the carrier group's electronic interference. At the rear, the Su-24 strike aircraft stays close to the water. Altitude, 700 feet. The tactical officer studies the formation carefully. They're still committed. Even after the failed long-range launch, the Su-24 could still become a serious threat if it gets close enough. Inside the CIC, the intercept clock keeps counting down. Then a new voice comes across the air defense channel. Viper 1, radar contact. The first F/A-18 Super Hornet from the carrier has reached the area, 30,000 feet above the ocean. The American fighter levels out and brings its radar onto the approaching aircraft. 3 contacts appear immediately. Confirmed, 3 aircraft. The pilot's voice stays calm and professional. Seconds later, the second Super Hornet joins the picture. And now, the balance in the sky begins to change. Back inside the carrier strike group, the destroyers maintain radar contact on every aircraft. Electronic warfare systems continue filling the air with interference, but the real pressure is now coming from above. The American fighters descend quickly toward the Iranian formation. Altitude, 20,000 feet. Speed, Mach 1.1, closing fast. Inside the Iranian MiG-29 cockpit, the radar warning receiver suddenly erupts with a sharp tone. The pilot looks down at the display. A radar beam is tracking him. Not from the carrier, from above. American fighters. The MiG-29 pilot shifts slightly right, trying to identify the new threat. Moments later, the F-14 Tomcat crew receives the same warning. 2 separate radar locks. High altitude. Fast approach. That means the interceptors are already within engagement range. Inside the lead Super Hornet, the pilot calls the distance. 30 nautical miles. His radar display shows the 3 Iranian aircraft clearly. MiG-29, F-14, Su-24. 3 different aircraft in one tight formation. The pilot locks onto the MiG-29 first. His targeting system stabilizes almost instantly. The aircraft's computer calculates a clean solution. But he does not release anything. Not yet. Because the mission is not to bring the aircraft down. The mission is to stop the approach. Inside the carrier's CIC, the radar operator watches the situation unfold on the tactical display. The geometry is changing fast. The Iranian formation now has 2 American fighters above it and the full carrier strike group ahead of it. The tactical officer watches the numbers shift. Distance to carrier, 28 nautical miles. At that range, the Su-24 would need only a short window to deploy its anti-ship loadout. But now the Iranian pilots have a new problem. American fighters are directly above them. The MiG-29 pilot checks his warning display again. 2 radar locks, strong, stable. American air-to-air systems could reach him long before he gets any closer to the carrier. Inside the Super Hornet cockpit, the pilot tightens his turn and drops altitude. He moves into position just off the MiG-29's left side. Not releasing, not escalating. Just close enough to make the message unmistakable. The second Hornet angles toward the F-14 Tomcat. 2 American fighters now hold the high ground over the formation. Behind them, the Su-24 continues forward for a few more seconds. Then the bomber's pilot sees the same warning lights, 2 separate American locks. At this point, the Iranian pilots understand the situation clearly. The corridor they were building is gone. They are no longer approaching an exposed carrier. They are flying into a layered defensive net, destroyers tracking them from below, electronic warfare disrupting their systems, American fighters controlling the airspace above. Inside the carrier's CIC, the tactical officer speaks quietly. They're boxed in. The radar display confirms it. 3 Iranian aircraft, 2 American interceptors, and an entire carrier strike group waiting beneath them. For the first time since the encounter began, the Iranian formation hesitates. Their speed begins to fall. Their altitude rises slightly. It is a small change, but inside the CIC, everyone understands what it means. The Iranian pilots have realized something. The closer they came to the carrier group, the more the U.S. Navy was learning. Radar signatures, signal behavior, electronic frequencies, flight patterns, everything. What looked like a strike approach has now turned into an intelligence trap, and they are flying right through the center of it. 5:23 local time. Altitude, 18,000 feet. The 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets hold position above the Iranian formation like silent shadows. Below them, the MiG-29 adjusts course slightly, its wings rocking as the pilot scans the sky. Inside the cockpit, the radar warning tone continues. Steady, clear, deliberate. American radar lock. It has not faded. It has not weakened. It is being held on purpose. 30 nautical miles away, the U.S. aircraft carrier continues moving steadily through calm water. From the outside, the strike group appears unchanged. Steel hulls cutting through the blue ocean. Escorts holding formation. The morning sea calm around them. But the invisible shield around the fleet is fully active. Every radar sweep, every electronic signal, every course change, every movement in the sky. All of it is being captured inside the carrier's Combat Information Center. The tactical display shows the full picture with sharp clarity. 3 Iranian aircraft, 2 American fighters, 4 escort ships, 1 carrier. Every system is linked through the fleet's data network, turning separate ships and aircraft into one connected defensive machine. The tactical officer studies the Iranian formation closely. They're slowing. The radar operator confirms it. Speed dropping, Mach 0.92 to Mach 0.78. Their altitude begins to rise. The Su-24 is the first to leave its low approach profile. Its nose lifts slightly as the pilot climbs to a safer maneuvering height. That single move says a lot. A strike aircraft does not climb out of a low approach unless the run is no longer possible. High above them, the lead Super Hornet pilot watches through his helmet display. His radar still holds a firm lock on the MiG-29. His system is ready. One command would send an AIM-120 Amram toward the Iranian fighter at extreme speed, but he does not press it. Instead, he holds the lock just long enough for the message to be impossible to miss. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the MiG-29 pilot checks his instruments again. 2 American fighters above him, both within engagement range. Behind him, the F-14 Tomcat tries to regain radar stability. Its powerful AWG-9 radar sweeps forward again, searching for a clean view of the carrier strike group. But the signal breaks apart almost immediately. Electronic interference still covers the airspace. A stable lock is impossible. Inside the Tomcat, the radar operator says something quietly over the intercom. They cannot guide another long-range shot. They cannot see clearly through the electronic noise. And now, American fighters are close enough to respond immediately. Inside the carrier's CIC, the radar operator tracks every movement. MiG-29 altering heading. On the tactical screen, the blip begins to shift. At first, the turn is subtle, then it grows wider. The aircraft is no longer flying directly toward the strike group, it is turning away. Seconds later, the Su-24 follows. Its heavy wings roll as the aircraft banks east. The F-14 Tomcat stays on course for a moment longer, still searching for a stable radar picture. Then its heading changes too. 3 aircraft, all turning away. Inside the CIC, the tactical officer watches the maneuver unfold. No cheers, no celebration, just a calm confirmation. Contacts disengaging. Outside, high above the ocean, the American Super Hornets stay in position for several more seconds. They follow the Iranian aircraft just long enough to make sure the message is fully understood. Then the lead pilot breaks radio silence. Carrier control, Viper 1. Iranian aircraft turning east. Approach profile terminated. The reply comes back immediately. Copy Viper 1. Maintain escort until clear. Below them, the Iranian formation increases speed slightly, now heading back toward the distant coastline hundreds of miles away. The Su-24 climbs higher, the MiG-29 levels out, the F-14 Tomcat finally powers down its radar. Inside the carrier strike group, the sensors continue watching long after the aircraft begin fading from range. Radar signatures recorded, electronic frequencies captured, guidance signals analyzed, flight behavior stored. Every piece of information is saved. Inside the CIC, the tactical officer leans back slightly as the contacts move toward the edge of the screen. Minutes earlier, 3 Iranian aircraft had approached the most powerful naval force in the region in a coordinated formation. They activated targeting radar. They released a long-range weapon. They came close enough to create a real threat. But they left behind something they could not take back. Their radar behavior had been mapped. Their electronic signals had been captured. Their tactics had been exposed. Outside, the Arabian Sea returns to silence. The carrier continues forward. Its escorts hold their steady formation. Above them, the 2 Super Hornets circle once more before turning back toward the ship. The encounter is over. No fireball, no wreckage, no dramatic scene across the water. But inside U.S. Navy intelligence networks, analysts now hold something more useful than a visible victory. They have the electronic fingerprint of the Iranian aircraft that challenged the carrier group.